Urjasvat Prabhu was actually indirectly, we were cooking in the kitchen in New Orleans, and some devotees had some outstanding kirtan tapes from New York. So the first time I heard of him was hearing his voice chanting the holy names, very enthusiastically. So, and then of course, I was able to, then he would come through New Orleans with Bhumipati Prabhu, and they would be traveling, working at big Lollapalooza festivals. So he would come through every once in a while with this great enthusiasm. So anyway, I was reading a poem by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, poem song, and I immediately thought of Srila Prabhupada and his dedicated devotee Urjasvat Prabhu. So I'm going to read that. Oh, venerable, and when I read it, though it was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, immediately it made me think of something that he might sit down and say to Srila Prabhupada, a prayer that he might offer to Srila Prabhupada. O venerable Vaishnava, O ocean of mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults, bestow upon me the 6 qualities, and offer me the 6 kinds of holy association. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the sankirtan of the holy name of Hare. Please bless me by giving me just one drop of faith on which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him to me. I am simply running behind you, shouting, Krishna, Krishna. So I thought I could hear his voice saying that to Srila Prabhupada. So real quickly, the 6 passions are those pertaining to words, mind, anger, tongue, stomach, and genital. The 6 faults are overeating, attachment to material things, inability to follow regulative principles, sense gratification, useless idle talk, and impure habits. Sounds like somebody I know. So he's left us, gone back to serve Prabhupada and Krishna, and has left us here to battle with the 6 passions and the 6 passions and the 6 faults. Now listen to this and see if this doesn't remind you of someone. The 6 positive qualities are enthusiasm in practicing devotional service, firm faith in devotional processes, a strong desire to attain prema bhakti, a favorable service attitude, avoidance of non-devotees, and appreciation of the company of devotees. That sounds like Urjasvat Prabhu to me. The 6 methods of association, which we were fortunately able to experience all those with him here, are to go to an assembly of devotees, to invite devotees into one's home, to discuss and hear devotional topics, to take Mahaprasad of devotees, and to offer Mahaprasad to devotees. So those we were able to share with him here. My first time to really sit down and talk to him was here. And we talked about our childhood and our upbringing and our initial contact with Krishna consciousness movement and how we came into the movement. So it was a wonderful experience to sit and share those 6 kinds of holy association with him. And I'm listening dearly. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It was last week during this time that we gathered to honor the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. We now gather to honor and celebrate the life of one of his most faithful disciples, Urjasvat Prabhu. Urjasvat Prabhu dedicated his entire life following closely in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, capturing the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Urjasvat Prabhu spoke with strong conviction to never compromise the philosophy. A common theme in his preaching was to encourage us to take advantage of our human births, to raise out of the animalistic nature of life, merely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and to become Krishna conscious. He would constantly remind us of this by asking us questions as, do you know what you're supposed to be doing? and what are you doing for Krishna? Many times after his lectures, he would ask us if he came across too heavy. He would say, I'm here to wake you all up. Death is coming. Urjasvat Prabhu has always had a special place in my heart. I was a fresh bhakta when I first met Urjasvat Prabhu. He was the first devotee to ever chastise me. It was during a Bhagavad Gita class when I was reading Srila Prabhupada's purport in a monotone voice. He stopped me and told me to read slowly and with emotion, that these purports are Srila Prabhupada's devotional ecstasies and should be read with feeling and appreciation. One day while attempting to play mridanga, Urjasvat Prabhu stopped me, shaking his head, saying that I was hitting it wrong. He then sat with me and showed me the proper strikes used to play the mridanga. He took the time to show me exactly how he was taught, taking my hands and showing me the different training exercises. I soon realized that he was not simply criticizing me. I understood that he was training me in a very direct and loving mood to ensure that I would grow properly as a devotee. Urjasvat Prabhu's personal example helped me to better understand and appreciate the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Throughout the years, I would look forward to his visits. I can recall the times we spent at Reed Park, at various preaching engagements with the devotees, and the times when he spoke for the university's Bhakti Yoga Club. My favorite Urjasvat Prabhu pastime was the night of August 17th, 2014. It was Janmashtami, and Urjasvat Prabhu appeared in his saffron robes, officially entering the renounced order. On this night, he was radiant with bliss. His eyes shone with the innocence and enthusiasm of a young boy. He was free. He had entered a state of non-attachment with one goal, to serve Guru and Krishna until returning home to Goloka Vrindavan. This night was very special for me. I had the fortune of associating with both my Shiksha and Diksha Gurus in the same time and space, Urjasvat Prabhu and Jivananda Prabhu. In the recent months, I would sit with him outside the temple before the Sunday feasts. I would look at him with great admiration, not saying anything. He would look to me and say, "Reveal your mind, Prabhu." We would have a very intimate discussion. One of the final subjects he spoke on was the importance of service and sacrifice. He would ask, "Sacrifice, do you know what this word means?" It means to forget about one's comfort in order to serve another. I'm very fortunate to have had such personal association with the true Vaishnava. When the news of Urjasvat Prabhu's departure from this world finally set in, I began to weep. I assumed that the tears were of sorrow, knowing that I would no longer have his direct association. After closer examination, I realized that I was releasing tears of joy, knowing that my teacher and friend had returned home and had completed his life's mission. There is no room for speculation or questioning. Without fail, Urjasvat Prabhu has certainly returned home back to Godhead. I pray to Guru and Krishna that I may also follow in his footsteps, that I may have the strength, courage, and enthusiasm to return and have his association once again. Let us always remember the strength that he has given to this community. Let his mercy be with all of us as we continue on this path home. Urjasvat Das Prabhu ki jai.
Vishwaka was a good example for me and all of us. He teaches us how to be very sober, how to live our body, how to be prepared. And this morning I was thinking, I left his body in a near, like Bhishmadev and Maharaj Parikshit. That's a blessing. And if Krishna bless me, my Guru Srila Prabhupada Bhakti bless me, if I can live my body the same way, it will be so blessed. That's such a beautiful departing. And we have time to do that. That is the reward Krishna gives us, to know, and to be ready, and to be always happy like Urjasvat was so happy. You know, anybody who never know him will say, "No, man, he's never about to die." He was so happy. Seemed like he was going to India for the first time, you know. When we go to India to the Holy Land, he was so happy. So for him, he was so excited. All the time I know him since a year, I never seen he was dying at all. And I'm serious. He was always happy, always say, yeah, it's time for me to leave, I'm going pretty soon. He just smile. And it's very, you don't see too many, even among devotees, I don't talk about people outside, so exciting, so welcoming death. Which is why I was saying, death like Krishna. That's the way, he shows a way to welcoming death. That's good. Death actually is the most fearful. It's very fearful, very, very scary for anybody. But for a Vaishnava, really concentrate, really try, really dedicate his life to Krishna, death is like the next step. Next step. Next step. It's easy, But for the one who never know about Krishna, never saw Krishna, death is like, close your eye, don't know where I'm going, pick up. Blind. So when we become Krishna devotee, we quit to be blind. We have the light, we can see death clearly. Death is no different than Krishna. So Urjasvat Prabhu show us the way how to die.
So, Urjasvat Prabhu really touched my life very deeply. I didn't know him too long, but the time I did know him, the short amount of time I did spend with him was extremely powerful for me and life-changing. When I was a new bhakta, which wasn't too long ago, he came to visit, and just having his presence in the temple chanting, I felt so much spiritual happiness just being in his presence. And then the past couple months chanting in the temple with him were just so wonderful, because he was fully surrendered his soul. He knew what he wanted, and he was going to go there. Nothing was going to get in his way. And the things that he talked about a lot before he left were how to treat devotees and humility. He said he saw so many things happen in ISKCON that people left, they came, they go, all kinds of nonsense went on. But he stayed out of that. He was humble and he was dedicated, and nothing was going to change that. So one of the first things that I asked him, I was contemplating things, and I asked him, I said, in the temple room when we were chanting in the morning, I said, what is real happiness? What is real happiness in comparison to material happiness? And this is a famous quote I think we should put on his memorial. He said, happiness is on the other side of sense gratification. He said, if your life is, and your goal is to gratify your senses, you're going in the opposite direction of true happiness. And that stuck with me. I was contemplating that. I still contemplate that. I'll never forget that. And it's very powerful, because everybody in this world is doing that. Everybody's trying to gratify their senses, and they're looking for happiness. And then when he came this time, I asked him the same thing. I said, do you remember when you told me this? And so I re-asked the question. And then he told me another statement, that after we look for hundreds and millions of varieties of sense gratification, then we decide to really be happy. So he said it in a different way, but very, very powerful. And he was just so grateful for what Prabhupada gave him. And he was so grateful for the Devotees Association. He was so appreciative. He was so happy to be here. And I just did a little thing for him. I'd bring him some water, and he would just look at me with those big eyes, and he would say, Prabhu, wow. He'd say, I'm internally, externally, and eternally grateful to you. And he was just, when you were with Urjasvat Prabhu, he was with you. And he was interested in helping you, and he was a preacher. That was his mood, was a preacher. And because he was surrendered to pleasing Prabhupada, pleasing his guru, and pleasing Krishna. And he didn't care. He didn't care what anybody else thought about him. He simply wanted to go out and please Guru and Krishna. And he knew by helping the devotees and serving the devotees that he would do that. And he did that for all of us. He impacted all of our lives. And so I'm eternally grateful for his association. And this is a very powerful experience for me. And I know he's back now. Who knows where he is right now. But I know he's with Krishna somewhere. So, Jai Urjasvat Prabhu ki.
Form of a letter. Should take about 5 minutes. My dear Urjasvat Prabhu, it's been a great privilege and an honor to have served and associated with you at the Tucson temple. In Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, Lord Krishna says, "For one who is properly situated in his determination, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees, and saintly kings." Bhagavad Gita 1868 says, "For one who explains the supreme secret of devotional service to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me." Urjasvat Prabhu, you were one of the early pioneers of our movement, and you faced many obstacles. It was the civil rights era in America. The public was against the devotees, and in addition you had to endure much mistreatment from your god brothers. Some devotees told you once, "Oh, you should just go back home. We don't want you here." Once Srila Prabhupada sent personal notes of encouragement to individual Sankirtan devotees who, like you, were working long hours on the streets in the early days. In a gathering where these words from Srila Prabhupada were being shared, you were told, "This is not for you. You don't need to be in here." When the year-end trip to India came for the devotees on Sankirtan, you were told, "You can't go. We don't have enough money for you." So you borrowed money from your father and told him, "Put my name on that list. I'll pay for my own ticket." Once in India, you were left to get around by yourself. Your god brothers didn't include you in their excursions. This was also a blessing, however. You became absorbed in thinking of Krishna in the holy land of Vrindavan as you took in the holy sites, mostly by yourself. One day, sitting alone beside Radhakund, you became absorbed in singing the Shed Goswami Astakam, prayers to the 6 Goswamis. While deep in your meditation, the form of a young girl appeared and sat down silently beside you. You looked in disbelief and said, "Who are you?" The girl looked at you and then got up, walked away without saying a word, and appeared to vanish as she approached. Once the devotees on Sankirtan with you on a trip out of town told you, "You should go urinate before we head back to the temple so we don't have to stop." While you were in the bathroom, they left, and you wandered the streets alone the entire night in that town. Prabhu, thank you for being a steadfast and brave son of Srila Prabhupada, for giving your life to spreading Srila Prabhupada's glories, and the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. Thank you for your warm friendship and for trying to lift me up from my illusions. I'll miss seeing your shoes outside the temple room. I'll certainly miss hearing you say, "Prabhu, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for me," whenever I would do some insignificant thing. We'll all miss your huge presence. We'll miss your enthusiasm for kirtan and the holy names, and your enthusiasm for Krishna Prasadam. We'll miss your animated expressions and fun sense of humor, and your heartfelt preaching. Sincerely, your friend and aspiring servant, Anna Devadas.
It's really remarkable. Our whole progress or process of devotion is really not fixed so much on how we're going to enjoy our life, but actually how to transcend it and become seriously fixed in spiritual life. I was thinking about in a traditional environment, spiritual environment, you join generally you take you grow up and then you have your parent your marriage, and you have these different events that go through, and but the real key is to come to the point of pure love for the Supreme Lord. And with Urjasvat, it's a real classic here, where he was of course being very much into the Sankirtan movement and so on, and of course participating in all that. But as things, as you get older and older, you start to see that you need to really focus on your spiritual life and transcend the concerns of material life. And he actually did that. He was actually able to separate himself. A lot of times when people get older, or even spiritual people, they still get very much attached to their material things. But he was able to separate that, which I thought was really remarkable. And so that was one thing that really struck me, that he was able to do it, because it's not so easy. You spend your whole life, being connected with all kinds of different things. Just kind of a little more close to home, just before we had this nice kirtan. That event was the
Last Monday.
Disappearance.
Disappearance.
yeah, right, exactly. And so he was chanting right here, and somehow I had the good fortune to be right there with the harmonium. And so it was like, when you're working with somebody in music, it's really sweet and you could just see, and we were just realizing how he was just completely absorbed. That's really what Krishna consciousness is about. It's like a sponge where you're just fully absorbed. Because I thought, he'll be here for years, but I could see that he's just like right there and just completely 100% into Krishna consciousness and serving the Supreme Lord and Srila Prabhupada. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
In scripture it is said, the soul is eternal, and Krishna also taught this very fine basic knowledge to Arjuna, that we should not lament when this physical material bodies dies. In material world, people have so much attachment to their near and dear, and for so many other reasons, they have deep lamentation when someone near and dear leaves the body. In the same way, in a devotional community, in a spiritual community, also there is a deep lamentation and sorrows when some member leaves this world. By now he is with Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, but for us, we are lamenting, we are missing his association, because he was the only one, he was the one to always guide us in the right way and to correct us. And then the moment of association of a pure devotee is enough to change, to bring change in our life. So when I was here, after I got his association in a very short time, I also got so many realization, and then my heart really purified by his association. And he always inspired us in Prabhupada teachings. And then he was very, very great personification of the humility. And he had a great enthusiasm of spreading holy names despite of his bodily conditions. He would every Saturday go Harinam out with devotees and distributing flyers, books, pamphlets to the people and inviting them to the temple. And he would always speak very directly. He would never flatter people. He would never say something good for just to please somebody. He would directly speaking to the people, their false ego, and then he would bring them to the consciousness. So once, every morning when I used to come from this door to Mangalarati, and I would see his shoes right out of the door. I would feel so happy that Urjasvat Prabhu is inside. And all the devotees would get great pleasure by his association. And after Mother Sandamani served him a glass of tea, when he is finished, I would take the glass and wash it and say, "Thank you, Prabhu." He would be so happy serving like that. And he always used to say, "I am waiting the Vaikuntha Express." And I said, "When you go to Prabhupada and Krishna, please remember us, remember me, so that it will be easy for me to come." And he says, "Absolutely." So he has done so much for me and for all of us, so we can follow the footsteps of our dear Urjasvat Prabhu and make our life successful. Do not spend much time, many lifetimes to finish this business here. One human form of this last life for Krishna. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Despite the fact that I was in many of the same places that Urjasvat Prabhu was living at the time he was there, I never got his association because I was a young woman then, he was a young brahmachari, and in those days we never talked. And I observed how enthusiastic he was, but I never had any association at all with him until this year. And he didn't recognize me from those days, and I didn't recognize him, because obviously it changed. But instantly, he became the father here. Instantly. Not even 24 hours later, instantly, as soon as he stepped foot in this community, he was like father to everyone, including me, and I'm a little older than him too. He was treating me like the daughter, because I was helping him with different nursing things and trying to help him get his paperwork in order and so many different things. And as everyone said, he was constantly thanking you and telling you, "I can't thank you enough. You're doing so much for me. I don't understand why you're taking so much time. What can I do? I have to accept this." But I accepted for Prabhupada. He was always speaking like this. He also would tell me that he felt like it was like providence that he came to this temple during the particular period of time that we were reading this section of the Bhagavatam about Dhritarashtra quits home. And I would joke with him and say, "Well, you're not from Dhritarashtra." I had to quit home. I had to quit all of it. So, the hallmark of being with a great saintly person, or one of the hallmarks anyway, is that when you're with that person, all the things within you that you're trying to hide or camouflage or all your backslides and everything like this come out in one way or another. And I think a lot of us had different personal experiences with him because he wouldn't let you compromise on anything. And he didn't, his politeness was to address your reality, not your superficiality. And that is the difference between a person who's single-minded and has Krishna as their goal, that single-pointed arrow that comes out in everything they say, everything they do, and shoots right through you when you're with them and tags those things in you that you know you need to change. So everyone here feels this, and we will carry this for a long, long time. And we go miss his shoes by the door.
Calls from all over the country, the Dominican Republic, so many devotees knew Urjasvat. I'll have to say that I'm sorry I didn't know him earlier. In my 28 years in ISKCON, I had never met him prior to him coming here also, but he had some really nice conversations with him. And his concern, with me and his instructions to me were how to take care of Tulsi, because I had never had a Tulsi at home before. And so he was always instructing me, and in fact, he was so concerned when I was telling him, well, Tulsi's not filling out, she's just growing straight up. He actually went out and bought some fertilizer, the proper fertilizer, and some liquid iron for me to give to Tulsi, so that it would help her fill out. So, sorry I didn't get to know him better, but I will miss him also. I have something to read from an old friend of his. It is with a heavy heart that I write upon hearing of the passing away of Urjasvat Prabhu. I met him in the early 80s at the Brooklyn Temple. Though he was quite my senior, he showed me kindness from the beginning and always treated me like a younger brother. In fact, when things got a little unstable in the society, he invited me to share an apartment with him, which I did for approximately 2 years. Later on, he moved to Dallas, Texas. Missing his association, I soon followed him there. Sometime after that, we parted ways by proximity, but not by heart. I have so much appreciation and affection for him. He will be missed. I pray that by the mercy of Sri Guru Angaranga, that he becomes successful in his journey, aspiring to serve Sri Guru and Vaishnavas Shamasundar Das.
Well, when I first met Urjasvat about, I think it was a year ago, he had a great story. I immediately wanted to know if he was a Prabhupada devotee. I pretty much knew he was. And one of the first things he said was, that he had ever said to me was, I used to like to just stand above him and smell him. And yeah. And another thing. Well, I'll just go into more of the present that when you were kind to him, he really wasn't used to people just immediately loving him, and he just was really, that I wanted to serve him, and and he was like, why? And I was like, well, I really like you, you know. And he, oh, okay. And then I was trying, you know, he's just, I can't put into words how much I really appreciated him and love him. And he just helped me on many levels. What Krishna Kumari said was really spot on, and what you said, I was sure I wasn't going to cry again. I mean, I thought, you know, that I was good, but you slaughtered me. And I did completely. So, yeah, other than, you know, lots of little stories and how truly humble really he was. And looking back on his life with devotees, I can pretty much understand why. And it's very nice that at the end of his life, probably the 3/4 of the end, that people love him so much and is so opposite from where he began, you know, and how that can happen in ISKCON, you know, the racism with him is just, it's heart-wrenching. What part of you are not your body did they not understand, you know, I mean. So he helped me a lot through some of my own personal issues, and so thank you for listening.
Well, Urjasvat Prabhu was, as they say, not an ordinary person, and extraordinary magic in him. And I remember the first time I met him, which was over a year ago when he was here visiting, I remember he came into the library and we had a little group in there. We're just a beginner's group of people who were learning how to practice. He talked and something happened in his eyes. I was observing him and I thought, wow, he's going to another place. It's not like he's out of his body. He's very much in his body, but he's in another place, and he's really channeling this divine love and encouraging people to practice this. Well, he only had one secret message, which was to chant the holy names, which was, then it came with a catch. Because it sounds kind of simple, just chant the holy names. What's the catch? Well, the catch is continue to chant the holy names. So it's, that along with his, it's no surprise it's such what a difference a week makes. I mean, here his presence was here with us just 7 days ago. And now where is he? And we know where he is. And so I would say, as I was thinking about him all day long today and the work I'm doing, is that he's right here. He's with Krishna, but he's also right here. We say Krishna's in our heart, right? There's that little... So there he is. And so because of his extraordinary ability to touch people, to also wake them up, because he was so funny, but also so urgent at the same time. So his message was always to wake up. Why are you still sleeping? So, we had a little project, and he wanted to, he was telling me just a few weeks back that his only goal was to chant the holy names and to spread the holy names, and he said that I want to give out the holy names like water. So he wanted me to make these little flyers. And so we talked about it, and he said, we should have a little something from the Bhagavad Gita, like the holy names on one side, and flip it over, and they have something that they can see and read and come to their heart. And he says, because once people read something from the Bhagavad Gita, they're never going to be the same. You cannot go back to your old box. So he sent me email 3 passages, which many of us are very aware of, but so poignant. So the first one he gave me was 2:13, chapter 2:13. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. And he was very sober. even though he was very fun. But he was very serious. And I think because so many people have come up here, he had the ability to touch every person, and he was directly with you, which is an amazing quality. Second verse, chapter 4:38. In this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge, which was his business. That was his number one business, was transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So that, in essence, is what I saw in him. That he was a sermon in itself, just to look upon him. You know, just that face. That's because that, you know, that countenance, that beautiful face. You know, what is that? It's a sermon in itself. He didn't have to say anything. Just be. And the third and last quote that I'm going to share with you, chapter 18, 66 verse. Always think of me. Krishna speaking. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very, very dear friend. Hare Krishna. I don't think I have any more to say. It was such a, as I say, there was just amazing, an amazing being. And so I think all of us are so fortunate to have known him. And I think the challenge for myself is to, you know, wake up, you know, become the kind of person he wanted us to be. You know, so when you were saying that he was like a father figure, you know, a spiritual father, what does a spiritual father want, or a spiritual mother for that matter? They want you to wake up, become the kind of person you're supposed to be. Hare Krishna.
I know Urjasvat Prabhu super well, but during the first few months that he's been here, I got to have some association and attend some of his classes. And so today I was sort of listening to some Prabhupada lectures and sort of searching for some quotes. And I couldn't really put my finger on anything because the specific lecture that I really got into, everything that Srila Prabhupada was saying, the way that he was preaching was so much Urjasvat Prabhu's mood. And Urjasvat Prabhu very much like embodied that. He was preaching very heavy and to the point. And I know, like Mother Krishna Kumari was saying, so many of the things, all of the encounters that I had with him, he was able to sort of pull some of those insecurities that you have out and kind of make you, the way you went back down and kind of made you face them. And so, like, also Mahaprabhu Prabhu was talking about the qualities of the devotee. That's, you know, some of the things that I was thinking about. He just embodied that. And so then reflecting back on just, you know, like my new conversations I would have with him in the restaurant or just in passing, all of those weren't just insignificant, they were really significant because of what he was trying to give, you know, to me and to everybody who he was interacting with. He was, you know, those qualities, and because he was so focused and so fixed, you know, the realization that I had today was, and maybe it's kind of obvious, but he loved Srila Prabhupada so much, and so he was really embodying that love and giving that to us, even if, you know, he was giving like a very like heavy lecture or something. It's his love coming through. And, so I'm really grateful that he loved Srila Prabhupada so much, and I hope that I can just remember that and also try to.
I knew him for 1 week, but he really made quite an impression in 1 week. And this whole experience is pretty heavy for me because I was sleeping right next to him. I got to see his face looking out the door. I would just like to say what I remember about him. he would have this way of like, he would come up to me and he'd look at me kind of bow-legged and he'd go like this. And he'd like, I swear, he'd like pierce his eye right into my soul. And I was kind of like taken aback. And I feel like when I was around him, like that guy really, I'm just really sad that I didn't really, the last thing he said to me was, we'll talk. You and me, we're gonna talk. Okay, great, well, sayonara. I mean, of course, I wish I could be where he is, but, and then it kind of makes me sad because one of the last things he said about me before he left was, "Oh, Zach? Yeah, he's got a long way to go." And, how could I ever forget this experience? I mean, I only knew the guy for a week, but, and then when I would walk by his room at night, the smell that came out of his room was like, okay, that's not really cologne, and that's not really incense. Like, that's holy man smell. That's just, that's holy sweat. The guy has holy sweat. And when I walked by his room, I just kind of felt like, wow, this guy is like, this guy's there. And I'm just like on the path for a week. And I don't even get to know the guy. But I hope you guys can, you guys will teach me, but I wish I had a really good father figure and that guy just left. I was looking forward to talking to him. Anyway, I know I'm not really qualified to be up here, but I could just tell by just a couple of the looks he gave me in the eye. That guy meant business. I mean, I don't know if there's, I don't know. That guy was just, he was very, very elevated. Just a couple times he stared into my eyes, it like shocked me. He kind of blew me backward and I'll never forget his smell. That sounds weird, but I used to walk by his window at night and there was this smell coming from his room. It was a very good smell. I've met a couple of really holy people before and they have like a very strong scent. And you could tell it wasn't cologne or oil or perfume. I mean, anyway. And one more thing I wanted to mention was that I love the way he would always say that second line about, and when he got out that whipping stick, and his pearl necklace shook. I mean, that guy puts so much, I do voiceover work, and I can just tell you, that guy should have been a voiceover artist. Because he put emotion into it when he was saying that stuff. A lot of emotion. And when I imitate somebody, it's a form of flattery, not mockery. I'm just really sad that I'm not going to get a chance to talk to him. But maybe you guys can tell me some of the stuff he said. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.